You feel it before you see it. A small itch on your ankle. A barely there sensation on the back of your neck. You swat, you scratch, and you move on. But that tiny moment, that almost nothing, has decided the fate of entire civilizations. For thousands of years, creatures smaller than a fingernail have hunted you, specifically, relentlessly, with a biological precision that no apex predator has ever matched. Lions kill thousands, sharks kill dozens, but the mosquito alone has killed more humans than every war ever fought combined. This is not a story about monsters in the dark. This is a story about the oldest hunt in human history, and your body is still the prey. Your ancestors knew this. They felt it every night around the fire. They felt it in the tall grass, in the marshes, in the slow rivers where they stopped to drink. Long before they had words for disease, they understood that something invisible was killing them, something that moved in swarms, something that left a mark. The evidence is preserved in ancient bone and amber. Researchers studying 46-million-year-old mosquitoes fossilized in Baltic amber have found genetic traces of blood meals, the preserved remnants of ancient feedings. And when scientists at the Smithsonian Institution analyzed mummified remains from ancient Egypt, they found traces of Plasmodium falciparum, the parasite that causes malaria, in bodies that died more than 3,000 years ago. The hunt is that old. Let's go back further, much further. Imagine your ancestor. Roughly 300,000 years ago, somewhere on the East African savanna. The sun is setting, the air is thick and warm. Your ancestor is exhausted. They walked perhaps 15 miles today, following game. They found water. They drank. And in that moment of rest, the hunt began. Mosquitoes in the genus Anopheles, the ones responsible for transmitting malaria, are most active at dusk and dawn. Your ancestor had no way of knowing this. No way to understand why certain sleeping spots felt safer, why the smoke from the fire seemed to keep something at bay, why some seasons brought fever and others did not. But they were learning, slowly, through death. Paleoanthropologist Sabrina Kreef has studied the behavior of chimpanzees, our closest living relatives, and found that they seek out and consume specific plants with medicinal properties when they are ill, plants that contain compounds active against intestinal parasites. They do this instinctively, which means the drive to fight back against internal invaders may predate modern humans entirely. Your body already knew something was wrong. It just didn't have a name for it. The name came much, much later. For most of human prehistory, fever was a spirit, a curse, a punishment from something unseen. Early humans developed elaborate rituals around illness, not because they were primitive, but because pattern recognition was survival. If the sick person slept near the marsh and the healthy person did not, then the marsh was dangerous. If smoke kept away the buzzing sound, then smoke was protection. If certain bitter plants reduced fever, then those plants were sacred. This was medicine, imperfect, halting, but real. And the tiny hunters evolved alongside it. Every adaptation your immune system developed, the parasites countered. Malaria is a masterclass in biological warfare. The Plasmodium parasite spends part of its life cycle in the mosquito, part in your liver, and part in your red blood cells. And at every stage, it is hiding, disguising itself, overriding your defenses. Researchers at the Wellcome Sanger Institute have mapped the full genome of Plasmodium falciparum, and what they found was humbling. The parasite dedicates roughly 10% of its entire genetic code to immune evasion. 1 in 10 genes exist solely to fool your body. Your body fought back in one of the most striking ways in all of evolutionary biology. A mutation appeared in the gene that codes for hemoglobin, the protein in your red blood cells. This mutation changed the shape of the cell, and in its changed shape, Plasmodium could not survive. The mutation spread through populations living in malaria-heavy regions. Today, it is known as the sickle-cell trait, and it is one of the clearest genetic fingerprints of the ancient war between tiny predators and human survival. Evolution does not optimize for comfort. It optimizes for reproduction. The sickle-cell trait can cause its own serious illness in those who inherit 2 copies, but in regions where malaria killed children before they could reproduce, even a painful compromise was better than death before adulthood. The tiny hunters reshaped your DNA. But mosquitoes were not alone. The flea, nearly invisible, nearly weightless, hitched rides on rats, on clothing, on the bodies of travelers crossing the ancient Silk Road. Inside it lived Yersinia pestis, a bacterium with a remarkable ability to overwhelm immune response. The bacterium essentially hijacks the flea's feeding tube, forcing it to bite again and again as it fails to feed properly, spreading itself with each failed attempt. When researchers at the University of Oslo analyzed ancient teeth from plague burial sites across Europe and Central Asia, they found the genetic signature of Yersinia pestis in skeletons dating back to 3000 BCE, nearly 5,000 years ago. The Black Death was not an isolated medieval disaster. It was the latest chapter of an ancient story. And lice, your ancestors carried them. Every one of them. Archaeological evidence from sites including lice found on ancient Egyptian mummies and combs recovered from Iron Age bogs in northern Europe confirms that Pediculus humanus, the human louse, has been a constant companion of Homo sapiens for at least 100,000 years. Ancient combs, often found in burial sites, were not decorative. They were survival tools. The NIT comb may be one of the oldest medical instruments in human history. Now reconstruct a single night. Your ancestor sits near a fire on the edge of a forest. The smoke drifts. The mosquitoes pull back slightly from the smoke. Your ancestor does not know why, only that the fire helps. A child nearby is running a fever, the third fever this season. The elder is chewing something bitter and pressing it against the child's skin. This is not ignorance. This is accumulated knowledge, passed down through death and observation over thousands of generations. The tiny hunters were the pressure that created all of this. They forced early humans to move, to adapt sleeping locations, to seek elevation, to associate certain environments with death. Researchers like J.F. Trape, studying historical disease distribution in sub-Saharan Africa, have argued that malaria was one of the primary selective pressures shaping where and how human populations could expand. Some regions were effectively locked to settlement for thousands of years, not because of larger predators, but because of creatures you could barely see. Here is the counterintuitive twist. The tiny hunters may have also made you more social. When illness regularly removed members of a group, the groups that survived were those that cared for their sick. A solitary human with a high fever in a prehistoric landscape died. A human with a group, people who brought food, who stayed close, who had accumulated knowledge of which plants soothed, which waters were safe, had a chance. Every epidemic in human prehistory selected for cooperation. The mosquito may have helped build community. And here's the modern mirror. Nothing has changed. The tools are different. The names are known. But Plasmodium falciparum still kills more than 600,000 people every year, the vast majority of them children under 5. The mosquito is still the most lethal animal on Earth. Researchers at the Gates Foundation and institutions across Africa are still racing to develop vaccines that can outsmart a parasite that has had millions of years of practice evading exactly that. You still swat at the itch without thinking. Your immune system still runs ancient code. Code written in the bodies of ancestors who survived things you will never fully know. The hunt has never stopped. You just live indoors now. And somewhere, in a warm and humid evening, a creature smaller than your thumbnail is doing exactly what it has always done. It finds you, it lands, it feeds. The oldest hunt in human history is still going on, and you are still the prey.